Welcome back to another episode of Lost and Found with Frankie. And today we continue on with the conversation with my mum, and we talk about our joint loss today of her son and my brother Matt, and how we journey through it together and separately, how our dynamics have changed, and so much more. If you didn't catch the first part of the conversation, then go back to the episode before this one to fill yourself in. So thanks for being here, and let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to Lost and Found with Frankie, a podcast for young adults and teens who are just trying to figure out who they are whilst dealing with one of life's most devastating experiences, grief. I'm Frankie, and 10 years ago, when I was 13 years old, I lost my eldest brother, Matt. Like you're probably feeling now, I felt lost, alone, angry, and completely overwhelmed with sadness, and was just craving a space where I could go and feel comforted and understood. So this podcast is my way of creating that space for you, whilst opening up the taboo topic of grief, which so many of us experience. So if you're feeling lost on your journey with grief, hi, and welcome to this safe space. Thank you so much for being here with me today. You are not alone, and I hope that this podcast brings whatever it is that you're seeking on your journey. So let's get into it. So we've spoken about it a little bit, and then for some context, I lost my eldest brother Matt, so I have two brothers and a sister, always have three siblings, four of us, which was always a bit of a weird one right at the start when people would go, how many siblings do you have? And you're like, what do I say, like right at the start? Because I've technically got two now, but I'll always have three.
Yeah.
And it was very quickly something I established and was like, right, I've always got three siblings. It's always four of us. And you obviously lost your firstborn, eldest child, which not better or worse, but just bleh.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I think it's the losses are very different. They're both huge. But I think losing a child is out of order.
Yeah.
Which has a complete different energy, feeling, whatever. And you've created them. They're part of who you are. So I'm not saying there's a hierarchy of losses. There's no point in even having those conversations because they're all different. They're all unique.
I agree.
But from my own personal experience, I think it's been harder losing a child than losing my dad.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting because even though losing your dad was chronological because he's older than you, he went far too young.
Yeah.
And you were far too young to be dealing with any of those emotions.
Yeah, I was just about to go
that time in your life. You're there like planning this incredible trip with your friend, and then this thing happens on also what's meant to be one of the happiest days in the year.
Yeah.
But that was too soon, and he was too young, and you were too young, and no one should deal with that. But I get what you mean, that it's completely not chronological to lose.
You're not meant to bury your child.
No.
Are you? And the thing is that I would have gone instead of him.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like links me with my mom again. It's kind of like I would do anything. You know, I think most parents would stand between their child and themselves, because that is a very different kind of love you have for a child of yours than you do and the love you have for a father. It doesn't take away the grief of
That's the
losing
key
my
word
dad.
there. Different.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
just different.
Yeah.
And like that's the same thing with grief. They're all just different. Doesn't mean one's more or less. It's just,
and it's not about comparing, is
no.
it? It's just what's your experience with it? What have you? How are you managing it? How are you coping with it? What can't you cope with? How can we help each other?
And they all carry different hurdles for you to get over, and different like emotions for you to get round. Like you're going to have different emotions with each. Like I know with Matt, I was a lot more angry than I was when we lost Nanny a few years ago, because it was like one just didn't feel right. Again, it's sort of maybe the chronological topic, I guess. But yeah, and like that's so okay. But it's.
But you saw Matt planning his future. He had so many more years to go, whereas Nanny was in 80-something.
Yeah, and she'd had the best life and given us the best life. Yeah. So it was weirdly like a bit of relief when she went, because she was in pain. Anyway, that's a loss maybe for another episode.
Yeah,
You can't
for
cover
sure.
them all.
No.
But yeah, so going on to like our loss with Matt, and obviously how that shaped all of us, and how it like shaped us, you and I, and our relationship. I mean, what's also crazy for me to think, because I was 13, like most of my adult life and my then experience with you that I remember has been with Matt not being here.
More time without him than with him, kind of thing, that you remember.
Yeah. But then in terms of you and I feel like we've kind of like grown together.
Sure.
But we've had some like hard times.
Oh, we all have. It's been very hard. I mean, looking back about trying to be a mum to kids that have lost a sibling. One, there's very little out there for siblings, which I was very aware of. And from a mother's point of view, watching her children grieve, because more often than not, you can fix things for your children. And, you know, if they've had a bit of a hard time with a friendship at school, or they've not been very well, or the teacher's not been very nice, or whatever it might be, you can help them sort that out. And being a mother to three kids that had lost their brother, I just remember looking at them thinking the hardest thing was I knew they had to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take it away from all three of you. I wanted to carry your grief, and I knew I couldn't, that it was your journey. And it has to be your journey, because that's where the alchemy comes. That's how you find out so much about yourselves.
Yeah.
And so as their mother to three kids, I found that really, really hard.
Yeah.
I didn't really care about myself at the time at all. No, I didn't. I remember my counsellor saying that. Said, you're looking after so many other people. When are we going to look at you?
Yeah. And like, that's another thing, like, not to give advice on counselling, because I'm not a counsellor, but I know that like when we first lost Matt, like obviously like you and Dad just had no clue what to do. So it's just like, right, let's just get into a family counselling session. And then we all went to counselling, and it was like awful.
It was a disaster.
It was such a disaster. I think it was, I couldn't even tell you how long after it was. I don't really remember, to be honest.
It's a bit of a blur, wasn't it?
But like, just remember going with you. I kind of like laugh at it now, because
you need humour in grief, don't you,
and
to
like
a level.
It wasn't funny at the time, but being where I am now, being able to look back at it, I laugh. I don't laugh at you. I laugh at like the situation and how we wandered off to all these different counsellors, and I like sat in these rooms. I'd pour my heart out about this whole day that had happened and all the details, and like cry and then get it all out. Leave and be like, Mum, I don't like them. I'm not going back. And you'd be like, oh God. And then we had to like 5 more. But I think that was just a case of like,
I didn't know what to do.
Absolutely. And then
no idea what to do.
Yeah, but then it was a case of you just wanted to do something, and you were at the place where you couldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Whereas like now we're like each other's counsellors.
Oh yeah, very much so. But I also kind of apologise to my kids, because I know now I was asking the kids to look at something that they just weren't ready to look at.
Yeah.
And we're all ready at different times. Like I would say all three of you have looked at your grief as siblings differently and at different times, and, you know, different things about it, different aspects of it. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
But for Dad and I, we had no idea what to do. And I think that's the case for a lot of families, that the parents don't actually know how best to help their siblings, particularly at a vulnerable age. I think when you've gone through something.
There's no blame to be had.
No.
I don't think you need to apologise, because at the time you were just trying to do the right thing, and it was good. It was all good intentions. So like,
just got it wrong. No, but my intention was right. It was like, how do I help the kids? Because I know I can't fix it. How can I help them? And I also was hopeful in terms of, you know, young people going through grief who have got brothers and sisters dealing with it. They develop a relationship where they can share.
Yeah.
That, you know, that because your grief is very different to Dad's and our grief. So my hope was as siblings and as young people, you were talking amongst yourself, because it's a very different conversation.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah,
Because you're experiencing it very differently, and because there's not as much out there, there's more coming.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really good to see. But I guess I was hopeful that you would be having those conversations with each other, which again is down to communication.
But I just think you had to do what you had to do.
Yeah, I know.
And I don't hold any like negative feelings from that time. As I say, like I actually kind of look back at it. I feel bad for like young me, poor young me, like waddling into these places. And it kind of felt, I think, because I then haven't had counselling since. Probably because maybe it just like put me off, because I also feel like,
I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, because it's kind of, the way I'd always describe it to people is like I went in there, then like this whole, it's like they'd opened up this wound and then left with it open. And then no one ever closed it for me. I feel like I kind of slowly closed it for myself. So I think that's an interesting thing. I think, as we've said earlier, grief is about options and going, would that work for you? Is that something you'd be interested in? Like, whether it's in school or not in school, within your family, or if you're at work, like, is that what you'd want or not? Or do you want to find someone you feel comfortable with within here that you just are happy to talk to? Or when you're ready to talk, just let me know. I'm here. Like, it's the options of, and not feeling like an expectation, right, this happens, now I need to go to this. But then if it is,
it's not
this happened and I need to go to a counsellor, it's like, perfect, great.
Yeah, but grief isn't logical.
Good on you. Like,
it's not logical. It's all a matter of the heart, isn't it?
And it's all about what you need in that moment. And at that moment, we just didn't need that.
No.
But how were you meant to know that?
No, exactly. How was I meant to know anything?
No, exactly.
Like with the same, going back to my mum.
Yeah.
And myself losing, Dad, and her losing her husband.
How are you meant to know? You can't know.
No, but that's okay. But that's when it gets hard, when we don't communicate. And then there's assumptions about what people think you should do and shouldn't do and know.
Yeah, which I think is just where, like, that's where it becomes a bit tricky.
We've found ways, haven't you? You found ways of connecting with Matt.
Yeah.
And Nanny. You lost, you never knew Dad, but you knew Nanny.
Yeah.
And you found your, like Nanny liked rich tea biscuits and a cup of tea. So
oh my God.
But these are the silly little things that matter, I think.
So actually, this is like a little story. So my grandma was called Patricia, and so we called her Nanny Pat. And after Nanny Pat passed away, because I'm the youngest of 4, I'd always be with Nanny Pat after school, because everyone else would always be at different activities, and we'd always have a cup of tea and a rich tea biscuit. Not a digestive, a rich tea. And Mum, honestly, I don't think one of the times I probably cried most unexpectedly, but Mum wrapped up Nanny's, what was it? Was it like a Christopher Robin?
Yeah, Christopher Robin biscuit
tin.
Old-fashioned biscuit tin.
And she wrapped up for Christmas. And honestly, like, there's this video of me, and I opened it, bawled my eyes out over a tin. And even like Harry, was my brother Harry, he was like, Sally, he was like, oh, it's a tin. It's like, it's not about the tin.
It's more than a tin. It's the attachment to the tin.
It's what the tin means. But honestly, like, best gift I've ever received. But it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, just like the things that make you feel just connected to that person, and just hold on to them. And
why not?
Who cares what you think if you cry over a rich tea biscuit? Like, I'm going to cry over a rich tea biscuit, okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's so true. And I think...
And these connections, I think, are really important for everybody. However, it doesn't matter how silly they are, about robins and feathers and stuff. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We worry so much about people's judgments and what people think of us. And it's crazy that we do that more than we really, really need to.
Yeah. I love it now. Definitely went through that phase of like, oh my God, am I a weirdo?
No.
And then and then you start speaking to people about these things, and they go, oh, and a butterfly came and I knew it was my grandma, and I'd be like, I'm not a weirdo.
Yeah, I'm normal.
People get me. And whatever it is that it's your thing, like robin, feather, butterfly, another animal, whatever, like it's your connection to them. And do you know what? It's yours to share, you and them. So
No, and I've heard you guys talk sometimes, and I've even seen it when I'm having conversations with other people. It's like, it's so beautiful when, you know, you're talking about aspects of your grief and your experiences and your thoughts around it, and you say something, and the person goes, "Oh my God, that's exactly how that's me. I thought that the other day, and I've never shared it with anybody because they probably think it's really, really crazy."
Yeah.
And you've just said it, and it's so beautiful, that moment when that person feels less alone. And I've seen you guys do it on occasions, you know, like, and that's that lovely connection to the reality of grief and how we're all feeling all these things, but we don't talk about them all the time. And then the connection that you get and the support, like you say, I'm not nutty anymore because someone else thinks the same. But that's why conversation is really important.
It's
It doesn't mean
key.
to say you've got to be, you know, talking about it all the time, but just to be able to feel safe enough to be able to touch it.
Yeah, because that's where you also will find people who get you, or people who get you slightly more.
And it's actually, a lot of people need that encouragement and feel safe to start talking. And you have to walk gently with yourself and other people, so like test the waters a bit.
Yeah.
And think, oh no, gone a bit too far.
This might be a bit too deep.
Yeah, or let's just change the subject. And that's just being respectful to everybody's grief journey, isn't it? Because although it's the same, because it's the most natural human experience that we're all going to experience at some point in time, you know, more than once. It's kind of crazy that it's like hidden over there, you know. But I think, you know, look at my mum. I know she had very difficult times, with people trying to understand. And I think, you know, in her generation, they talked about it even less.
Yeah,
I really felt,
which is
my
hard.
mum. Yeah, but I was quite a good talker. So
she had you.
Yeah, she had me. And I
when you came back from travels.
Yeah, and Mum became. She never wanted to marry anyone else. Like, Dad was the love of her life. So her choice with loss was not to have any other partners. And I guess, I don't know, thinking about it now, I hadn't thought about this before, but in a way, I made sure she was very much a part of our life because family was so important to her. And she was quite a shy, quiet person, unlike my dad, who he was part of the theatre group and he played squash and golf and, you know, very easily talked about things.
Yeah.
My mum was much more shy. She always used to think, oh, no one wants to go for a walk with me. Or no one. I said, Mum, you're great. It takes you about 2 hours to get to the village. Everyone wants to talk to you. It's kind of like, can't you see how much people like you? But she was so insecure, and that was her personality. So I was always trying to help her later on with being a part of our life, because family life was so important to her. And it had all gone pear-shaped with losing Dad. And I know I'd look at her at times and I think, I know she just wants Dad to be doing stuff with her and she's doing it on her own. But I hope I gave her a gift back of being part of, you know, family life with us.
Without a doubt. You gave her the biggest gift. And to be honest, you gave us the biggest gift of just having her.
And the rest of the school.
And everyone, all of our friends. And Nanny Pat's little Postman Pat car.
Yeah. She loved it. What a gift. She, you know, I'd be taking one of you to ballet and she'd be doing the rugby training and all of that. And she'd take half the school with her in the back of her car to help. And everyone, and then went at Nanny's service. There were so many young people talking about Nanny Pat.
So many of our friends all came. Because they were like, oh my God, I'm devastated. I love Nanny Pat. She used to give me a rich tea biscuit after school. Like, she filtered through to so many more people. And just one of the best gifts I've ever received. Yeah. It's just time with her.
And she lived a long time without Dad. So that's another
And
loss.
do you know something? I hadn't even thought about it till just now either. Is she never shied away talking about Matt after he had passed?
Well, the other thing, interestingly, is that I remember having conversations with my mum because she lost her grandchild. So if it's out of order losing a child, then it's even more out of order for my mum to lose her grandchild. I mean, how did that even happen? I remember she even said to me, she says, it's wrong. She said, I've had enough years on this planet. I should have gone. So there was all that extra emotion for my mum losing a grandchild. Like, I've done enough.
Yeah.
I should have gone, not my grandchild. He had so much more living to do.
Out of order even more. But it always was nice that she always loved talking about Matt.
Yeah. Yeah. She loved talking about
And
Matt.
for someone who probably didn't have that when she lost, sorry.
No.
But for knowing that she didn't have that when she lost Granddad and people not bringing him up as much with her just made me so happy that like she had gotten to a place where like she would just want to bring him up, and she would bring Granddad up all the time.
Yes, she did.
And I think that's so nice because then I would learn more about him. And I would tell her stuff about Matt that she wouldn't know about Matt. And then you gain stuff from those sort of conversations.
You get a bit of each other back again. You get a bit of you get a little bit of Granddad back from Nanny by talking about him and looking at photographs, which you wouldn't probably. Well, you never met Granddad, unfortunately, but at least you got a little bit of him through Nanny.
Yeah,
and her stories.
So true.
That's why I just think it's so important to make sure the people that you've lost travel with you. They don't leave them behind on that day they passed over. But find ways to walk with them and carry them with you.
Yeah.
And I think Nanny did that.
Yeah,
and I think I've done that with my dad. Because, talking about the conversations we used to have, and he'd love it because I was the why child. It's that I probably drive most people mad with it. I'm always curious, always questioning. And I don't know, maybe I do that even more now because it connects me to the conversations I had with my dad, when he'd come back after work and we'd just sit there and I'd say, well, who says that and why is it like that? And he said, well, they're great questions.
Yeah, keep asking
asking
them.
about space or, and maybe that's my connection with my dad.
Yeah.
The remembering those conversations and what he taught me. And I've carried that through. So like I've carried him through my life. And that's between Dad and I, really. I mean, I do share people about that time, but it's something I carry of my dad with me.
Yeah.
Which is lovely.
So lovely.
And I haven't left him behind.
And in a sense, it's a part of you that maybe through that 40 years, society might have gone like, stop asking all these questions, blah, blah. But because of how close you were with him, it's made you have absolutely no guilt over that being a part of you. It's made you love it even more because it's your connection with him. You've gone, nah, not going to do that. I'm going to stay the way I was. And that's an old part of you that you...
Yeah, I know.
Old part of
no,
you.
And that's like, I've still got... Because there's different versions of you all the way through life. I'm not, nearly 62, I'm not the same as I was when I lost my dad at 21 or being a mother at, 30 or even in between, whatever age, there's different versions of all of us. And we all, each, day, year shapes you with things that get thrown at you. And it's nice to sort of keep hold of those parts of you while you grow.
And I think you have done that very well.
Thank you.
And you carry all three of them with you. We're making moves, Debs.
Yep, that's what it's about.
Debs has got her own website.
I do, yeah. Yeah. I used to do a lot of journaling. And that's another thing I've, for anyone in grieving, journaling I've found incredible.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting seeing your writing on a piece of paper because it kind of like gets out of you and you see it. Sometimes you get answers while you're writing, which was amazing. And then I think what happened in reference to the website, my journaling ended up being writing articles. And then I set up a website. It's called White Willow and Time. This is a mother's grief.
Yeah.
And it's brutally honest because I personally believe we need to be more honest with grief. But I'm a cup half full person. So I've kept that going through life and it's really hopeful.
Yeah.
I've got loads of different ways of, managing grief, things that you can take on board to help yourself and others, things that have happened that have been really difficult, talking about all the things that are attached and the knock-on effect. and the ripple effect of grief. So that's all on there. Doing retreats, which is really lovely to help people. And I've got a kindness cafe once a month, which is quite a difficult space to walk in. To we call it the kindness cafe because it's all about kindness there and no judgment. But people know they're going in and am I expected to talk about grief? So it's a slow burn, but it's starting to build now. And it's so lovely when you hear someone saying, I found my tribe.
And I think you should be so proud of it, because any community like that, one, is so hard to start, and two, as someone going to that community, it's odd because you're kind of walking in like, I'm going to this obviously for this specific reason, and I know I'm probably going to have some really deep chats, which is so probably why most people are going. But it's like someone's got to start that conversation.
I do. Totally. And what's lovely is this lady that came the other month, she said, what I like about this is we talk about the tough things.
Yeah.
We share and we help each other, but we have a laugh too.
Yeah, you have to.
And that's what's important, because you can't be too serious with it all, because you'll just, you just dig yourself in a hole and you'll never see joy. And it's about, the whole journey of grief is actually, finding happiness again without guilt, and finding a way to be respectful and honouring the person that you've lost, the grief you're experiencing every single day, but also knowing that you can be happy again and you can be joyful. So it's not about one replacing the other, it's doing it all together.
Yeah.
So,
wow. That's such a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you like what advice you'd give, but I think you've just done it. I was also actually going to ask you about what tip you would give, but I feel like journaling is a really good one.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's quite hard.
Do you know it's like your best friend? Well, I don't know. I personally didn't find journaling hard, because I think, I did it after my dad in a different way. I did it with Matt, with Mum. And it's kind of like, there's so much going on in your head. You're trying to understand so much. It's like your head's exploding with stuff, and you get it out on paper. So it's kind of like releasing it and seeing it. And I don't know, I found it very therapeutic. And I would say that my journaling is my best friend, because there's no judgment there. There's no judgment from the journal. There's a lot of judgment in the world on grief, how you do it, and people's expectations for you. But when you're writing in that book, she's your best friend.
Yeah.
Because she's listening.
Yeah. And I feel like when you get all of those whirlwind emotions down on a piece of paper, it kind of feels like it takes away a bit of the weight of them for you. I remember I used to journal, because again, I think one of your things when you were like, what the hell do I do? You were like, here's a journal.
I bought you all journals.
I think we got like a journal once a month.
Yeah.
And I actually did start doing it. And I remember, this is actually really sweet. It's quite like a vulnerable thing to share, but I remember on Christmas, the first Christmas, I wrote a journal and I put it on the floor open. I don't know why.
It's okay.
But I was like,
don't overthink it.
In a sense, I think in my head I was like, well, if it's open, he can read it. But then I was obviously like, he doesn't need to read it.
He knows it anyway.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It was so, and sometimes I look back at that and I'm like, why did I do that? But it worked at the time, and it felt like it got that weight off me. But
you needed to do it, and it doesn't matter.
But it's quite funny.
Yeah, I know.
It was just open on the middle of my floor. Yeah, I used to I always talk to Matt. I always talk to everyone, to be honest.
And Nanny and
both granddads.
Yeah.
I talked to all of them, even though I didn't meet one of my granddads. But I just and I kind of do it funnily now. And to be honest, some of my friends do it now too. Honestly, because I got so just open with doing it over probably the last 3-4 years. I'll just be like, God, Matt, I've got a big day today and it's raining.
Sort it.
What's going on? Sort it out. And now some of my friends will do the same. They'll be like, Matt, where's my sunshine? It's nice, and it's nice that they feel comfortable doing it with me, because then in a sense, even though they've not lost that person, it makes me...
How does that make you feel? Exactly.
so much more, not even normal. It just makes me feel comforted.
By your friends.
Yeah.
Because you shared and you've spoken with them.
Because in a sense, it's silly.
they wanna
It's not
help
silly,
you.
but like they're being like silly with me.
But it's not even
It's not silly, it's the wrong word, but like they're being what I need for myself. They're doing it with me, and
They're
sort of like
endorsing it, aren't they? They're supporting it. They're supporting you. Because that's all you want, really. You just want to be heard and supported.
Yeah, and that's like the best kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's interesting how you just do different things that you maybe look back at now and you're like, why did I do that? But at the time, it helps. So
exactly,
no regrets. But yeah, so I think like as Debbie now, 62, lots of losses. What advice would you give to? I know it's quite a broad question, but just like even if it's small, we've probably said it, to be honest.
Probably, yeah.
But what advice would you give to somebody my age or somebody my age when I was like 13? Sort of like that age where you've got so much else going on, figuring out who you are, like, and this happens, gets dropped on your plate in the middle of nowhere. It's so unexpected, one of the worst things you can go through. What would your piece of advice be as Debbie now?
Be real and be true to yourself, because it overcomplicates it, because everybody wants different things from you in life. So you spend so much time trying to be what everybody else wants of you for them. And actually, if you can just be really brave and say, this is me, you attract the right people. You're not then adding even more layers to your grief because you're trying to be what society wants you to be, and then you're compromising yourself all the time because you know that's not who you really, really are. And actually, if you can just be you and be real and be honest, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think being real and just, as you've just said, saying how you feel, it just takes away other layers of like, if you start off not doing that. I'm not saying that's a wrong thing to do, because everyone is in a different mindset when dealing with it. But if you can get yourself to a point where you can just go, oh my God, I'm really struggling, I need help.
Yeah.
Or, oh my God, I just, can someone distract me? Or, oh my God, whatever it is you need, it might not even be talking, but just being real and being like, I don't need to talk about this situation right now. I want to go distract myself.
Okay.
Or I just need to cry my eyes out. Yeah. But I don't want to be alone. I want someone here with me.
And actually, that you've just touched on it. You've probably said something that I would agree with, which I didn't say, is actually it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
And don't actually, do you have to see it as help? Just ask. It's okay to want support. It's okay that you can't do this on your own. So there's such a huge part of grief that you actually have to do on your own because it's so personal, but you don't have to do it alone. So there's a part of it that you do on your own because, as I just said, it's personal and you've got to do the work, but you don't have to do it in isolation. So make sure that you've got a support network there. You can identify someone, maybe particularly if you're young and you're at school. Sometimes the person, if you're lucky enough to be in a school and they have a really good support system there for sort of mental well-being and grief, then that's great. But sometimes the person that's allocated to you isn't necessarily the right person. And I know that you identified someone at your school that you just understood you and clicked with, and that you could go to, couldn't you, Frankie? And you could say, I'm really struggling today, and I need to go and have a piece of cake and a cup of tea. Yeah. And you identified who that was. Yeah. So that's really important, maybe not just in your friendship group, outside of grief, particularly if you're very young. That's quite hard to do because of peer pressure and stuff. But also you've got the school situation. You spend a lot of hours at school. It's making sure that you are supported there.
I think so. I think you've summed up really nicely. Like, the reality of grief is it's yours because it's your relationship to that person, your loss, who that was to you. And so there's so much you have to do on your own, which is scary. Not so much, but like there's parts you have to do on your own. But for all the other parts, just find your person or your many people, whoever.
Get some people to walk
or your community.
Get
just
some people to walk with you.
And it's like, Yeah, I have never looked at it that way. And that's a really nice way to put it. There's parts it's your grief, and there's bits you're going to have to just cry with on your own and figure out your own. You don't have to cry on your own ever, but as in deal with it on your own. But for a lot of it, you don't need to do any of it on your own, and just find your people.
Yeah.
Or your person.
Yeah.
Or your community.
I agree.
And just let them help.
Yeah.
Let them laugh.
And you can also guide people to help you.
Definitely.
And you can say, I don't know either.
There are no answers.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. But yeah, I think that's a really nice way to end it.
Perfect.
I think what a more beautiful way you can put it than that, than just find your person.
Yeah.
Ask for help.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's all okay. Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak, Frankie.
Oh my gosh, don't be silly.
The different losses and the interactions and
Yeah.
the layers and stuff. I really appreciate, and I think hopefully it'll help people along the way to deal with their own grief.
I think it will. And thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
I mean, you're just the best.
Thank you.
So
As are you.
thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Frankie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Lost and Found with Frankie. If it's resonated with you, or if you've taken something from this episode, or if you've just sat down and enjoyed it, I'd be so grateful if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Hit that follow button, and if you're watching me over on YouTube, please give it a like and subscribe. I really want to reach as many young people and teens who are dealing with grief, as I know firsthand how much hearing conversations like this can help. So if you know someone who could benefit from what we've talked about here today, please give it a share with them too. And come say hello on Instagram and TikTok at Lost and Found with Frankie. So thank you again for being in this space here with me, and I'll see you next time.